We are recording this. If anyone is uncomfortable with being front and centre, show that's you. From the tap. Right, so book twos out, please. We got up to the two Grenadiers, didn't we? Well,
pass. Abstain.
I'm pretty sure that's what we did. Do you remember it? We'll have to get the one feed. Yeah, no, I'm sure we did, because we did the finger exercises on page 16, didn't we? And then
We haven't done any.
we have not done the two Grenadiers yet. Okay, good. So, lots of people are very excited about this piece when they get here. It's very appealing to parents and students. The parents always love waltz and the kids always are like, slow piece. And then everybody loves the two Grenadiers, which is nice. So let's play it first and then we will talk about it. So as we're playing, think about what you think the challenge is going to be for your students.
I think it's probably better just to bring it.
Do you want to go over that? So, lots of bow, lots of energy. Tricky, so make sure that somewhere back a little bit you've got your preview note to start doing dotted rhythm twinkle. I personally think doing it as is implied just before the piece at the end of bar 16 is too late. It would be a good thing to do during bourrée.
Just to add about the national anthem, it's the revolution song, so it's the after they got all the rich guillotined.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
It's the people's, it's not like God save the Queen, King.
Exactly, it's a bit different.
Yeah, so however you organise your preview, I'm writing it, I don't know why it wasn't in there already, but anyway, down the side of the piece like that, so that during Bourrée, you remember to do that dotted rhythm twinkle as preview.
So do you do the kind of witches dance rhythm twinkle for this?
Yeah, literally
So
use
that-
the exercises at the bottom
the-
of 16, yeah.
Okay.
Good. So, hip hip hooray is a good phrase to use for the rhythm at the end, and you can talk about being a revolutionary and getting the royalty out if you would so like to.
Which bar?
Hip hip hooray, do 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 do, hip hip hooray. Bar 32 and 34. I find it very helpful to let them work out the major section pretty much by themselves, especially because often we've spent quite a long time on these exercises, page 16, maybe they've just got their credit at the end of a piece, at the end of a lesson for Bourrée, and then suddenly it's like, oh my god, you can't start the two Grenadiers by yourself because there's so much to go through. But actually the major section, they can learn most of it by themselves. So if you find yourself in that situation, there's nothing wrong with asking them to look at the major section first, and then, you know, write yourself a note to spend a lot of time helping them with the minor section. Lots of my kids get a credit for the major section and then for the minor section and then put it together. So it's sort of one of those double pieces. Okay, so the tick boxes are tone and clarity, which is obviously deeply connected to the bowing. And I've just written here, I don't know if you've looked at the picture, but I've just written here a dotted quaver and semiquaver, an arm under the dotted quaver and hand under the semiquaver. Because basically in terms of the execution of that, in terms of getting the sound right, so if you think this is mostly from the arm, and then if you're thinking about the arm there, you're just going to kind of have a big scrunch. So it's really hand, and that kind of continues all the way through.
Have they been thinking about hand movements before?
I don't mean thinking about moving the hand differently, just in terms of what's actually in charge.
Okay.
Not that it's not finger action,
Okay.
just where the kind of driver is really.
Sorry, what was that first box?
Tone and clarity.
Okay.
And then we also have rhythm, memory, bowing. Can you write these down, please, Dan? Don't rely on the video. Very good. You've done it already.
Yeah.
Gold star.
All of those.
Well done. Dynamics and intonation. Kit, what is the big challenge in the intonation department?
Major minor.
Yeah, can you just be a bit more specific? Well, which is harder, the major or the minor?
Minor.
Good, because they've got lots of what's new-ish.
Low one.
Exactly, perfect answer. Well done. The low ones are the challenge, and also often you'll see that they do this to try and get the low one, and so you have to really practice with them. Like I talk about making a square, exactly, rather than just letting them kind of move the wrist out the way so that the one stays a comfortable shape but still gets to the low one. So it's like you want to kind of like practice that movement right from the knuckle, not from the wrist.
I could talk about Y ones. So when you bring your
Oh yeah.
to your Y,
same thing, but just a different
Sort of
look
line
here.
with your squish.
Oh, okay. Right.
Cute. Good. The bowing is the major challenge for memory, along with this sort of section from the upbeat to 15 through to the end of 22.
Hooked by.
Yeah. So one of the rules that can help them to remember is that all of the dotted rhythms in the minor section are hooked bows. So the dotted crotchets plus quaver, do down down da 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 da, up down down up down. All of those are dotted. The dotted crotchets with quavers are all hooked, as are the dotted quavers with semiquavers, but not dotted minims and crotchets. But I mean, you won't need to go into that with them because I don't think they consider that to be kind of a dotted rhythm. It doesn't have that same feeling. But then when they get into the major, it's not hooked. Hannah, what would you recommend if you've got a student who can play all the notes beautifully, much like Birdie could for weeks on end, bless her, could play all the notes perfectly but just couldn't get the bowing? What would you recommend them to practice?
Play along with the video of someone.
Excellent. Play along with the video, bow along with the recording while looking at the music.
I said the word hooked first.
Sorry?
I said the word hooked first and put H's in
Mm-hmm.
and get them to say it.
Mhm.
The mum and the parent.
The mum and the parent.
Yeah, I was going to say, the child and the parent.
Yeah.
So if they can say it, sing it and say the word hooked,
Yeah.
then they should know where it comes.
Good. And then in terms of repetition boxes, they definitely always need their first entry. Da dee 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 dee. You're looking for a drop of the elbow after the second D. So we're looking for big bows. Most of the bow. Here, there's quite a lot that happens in that tiny space, isn't there? You've got to remember to do an up bow, you've got to drop the elbow to come onto the E, you've got to make sure you've got good contact with the string, and you've got to get your left finger ready for the F natural. So there's a lot there. Now, there's a lot to fit into that, so they definitely need that as a 10 box. And you can obviously teach open strings first if necessary.
Would you do just in that bar? Where would the box be? Da, 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 da.
From the first note to the end of the minim D.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they've got to remember to stop for the rest as well, don't they?
Yeah. And obviously they can play probably better than I can today. No? Let me just try that again. I'm sure it's because I'm sitting down. So that they really get that understanding of what's happening in the bow before complicating it with the left hand, if necessary. You might want retakes as a tick box. There are lots of those little retakes at the heel where you're not landing before you're playing the next note. They're not doing that.
Oh, okay, so
It's
not
too
like
fast.
that.
And that one.
So circular landings, would you call it?
I don't really call it anything, sorry. Just landing from the air, or starting from the air. Starting in the air. Making it sound good.
Without crutching.
Exactly. This says curved line in my music. I've got no idea what that means. Helpful, Kate.
What's that,
Right.
sorry?
On bar 11 it says curved line.
Maybe the depth of the bow.
Don't know. Anyway, May song is helpful to review for the major part. I think they like to think that they're like being like trumpets, especially do 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 do. That is very much like a fanfare, but the whole of the major section is quite trumpety. And then for a brownie point or several million, bar 35, what do you need to review?
Bar 435.
Song of the Wind.
Song of the Wind. Ta-da! Well done. And you also want them to make sure they're keeping the one down. If the one's not staying on, that's going to be really messy. The dynamics from bar 31 is mostly in the bow, not in the depth or the contact point. It basically, you want the contact to stay really good. It's not a sort of soft piano, which brings me on to one of my little things I'm just going to drop in. I do think it's important that we call piano quiet, not soft, because soft implies a whole load of different stuff than quiet. Quiet is literally just a dynamic, whereas soft has a lot more kind of emotive, actually you can be quiet and terrifying, right? Or quiet and spiky, or quiet and not a beautiful sound. Whereas you can't really be soft with a not beautiful sound, like it implies that it's beautiful. And then, if you do take that on, and this is like one of my things, lots of people don't, lots of professional musicians use soft all the time, it's not wrong. But if you do use quiet, then you can say things like, this is not a soft piano, this is a clear piano, right? It's literally just like you turn the volume down. Whereas on waltz, for example, it's definitely a soft piano, you want it to sound sort of more...
Intimate.
Yeah, and like... sort of fuzzy somehow, like not that clarity of sound, whereas this is literally, this should sound exactly the same as this in terms of the quality of sound should be exactly the same, it's just the volume is changed.
So are you still using length to do that, or are you using length and weight?
Yeah, length and weight.
Okay.
But mostly it's length. Yeah, good. The big challenge for most students is the upbeat to 19 to the end of that line. So we're just going to practice all together with our violins and bows how you would teach that, because I think if you can get it sorted out, then it will save you several weeks in some cases of the child just getting that bit wrong. Okay, so first of all we're just going to play it. So we're talking about this bit. What do you think one challenge is in them doing that right, Joe?
Knowing that there's one hook in that bit.
Good, knowing the bowing. Yes, another challenge.
Repetition of the same note.
Excellent, so many A's.
I'm not sure.
Okay, what, if it was like this? Do you think they would have the same challenge?
Wait, sorry.
Shall I give them to you again? Okay, so I'll put you and Kit together on this. So if it was, this is how it does go. Sorry?
Remembering there's a different, it's different at the same time.
Yeah, different. What? Give me the word.
Different rhythm.
Yes, exactly right. Whereas what I played most of them will do, or some sort of amalgamation of the two. So it's because the rhythm is different the second time, the bowing is different therefore the second time, the notes are all just A's and C's and D's, C sharps and D's, and they don't really have in their head, after when they listen to this piece, I think it all just becomes a bit of a blur of dotted rhythms, and you know, it's not very clear. So first of all, I teach them how to play to the 4. So let's all play together, my turn, your turn. Right, then we're going to stop there. Ready? And now we're just going to sing blue, blue, jello, blue, 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 blue. Ready? Go. Blue, blue, jello, blue, 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 blue. Because the notes to the bit we just sang are really, really easy, right? The difficulty is getting in their heads how it's supposed to go. So it doesn't matter if they don't play that when they're playing the first part. So what I would set, you can sit down, what I would set is a week of playing literally the box like that, where they do 5 times play up until the 4 and then sing. For some students that will be enough for them to come back and go, I know how it goes, I've been singing it all week, and then your job is done. For others it won't, and for some it just doesn't work. I mean, I'm sure that Birdie and her mum did exactly what I asked them to do on this, but it just took a long time for it to click into her head from how she had it from listening and just not quite being there on top of what the notes are. So, you know, you can't avoid every problem that you see might happen. And so then the second week, we would sing blue, blue, low, jello, jello, blue, 2, and then they would play. And because that's so much easier, they would then also practice reversing that. So then they're practicing either singing and playing, or playing and singing, but they're not putting it together yet. And then the third week they would put it together. I mean, obviously, you know when they're ready to put it together. But I do think that's a really, really good way to get the bow to do the right rhythm and the fingers to do the right rhythm in bar 21 and 2.
Just another idea. I had teaching points I think from Alison for this. She uses words. So she says, "Oh, would you like to have a pony? Oh no, Daddy will not let me." And it has been helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to have a pony?
Oh no, Daddy will not let me.
Different words for that,
Yeah, it's your words.
I know that this is really tricky. I'm glad this is nearly over.
Okay. I know that this is really tricky. I'm glad that it's nearly over. Yeah, that's good. I prefer that to Daddy and ponies. So yeah, you might want to try that.
Get them to make
It
their
makes
own
them-
words up.
It makes them laugh as well, because this bit's stressful.
Yeah.
What was it? I know that
this is really tricky.
I know
That this is really tricky. I'm glad that it's nearly over.
Yeah, that's excellent. I like that a lot.
I think half of that was from Barbara.
And then in the second, in the major part, really the only bit that they find difficult to remember is that you've got plain crotchets. And then it's exactly the same again. And so you have to wait for the hip hooray until the very end. So obviously it's a really characterful piece, so don't forget to then talk about what is a grenadier. It's a soldier. You know, the first part is, it's like a story, isn't it? The first part is sort of, you know, soldiers going to war, there's a long march, they're getting tired and thirsty and hungry and, you know, not having a great time, feeling a bit sad maybe, and then they win the battle and they are triumphant, cut off all the royalties' heads. However you want to paint the picture, but do make sure that you talk about the kind of emotion behind it and not just the technical challenges. Is everyone clear on how much bow you should be using for each bit, basically, where you should be in the bow?
The major section or the whole thing?
Let me rephrase. Are there any questions about where you should be in the bow for any of it? So you're starting quite near the tip. I think you want most of the whole bow for that first up bow. And then Duddy needs to be at the heel too.
They have grenade launchers.
Grenade
Ooh.
launchers.
Ba-boom.
Talk about revolutionaries.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there were plenty of grenades used by the revolutionaries.
Yeah, hand.
Boom, kaboom.
What are they called? Hand grenades.
Yeah, hand
bombs.
grenades. Hand grenades.
Not the days when this was written.
I'm sure they were making hand bomb thingy, like.
Yeah, as soon as gunpowder was invented, really.
Lots of cocktail in this.
Yeah, exactly.
So all of your retakes, the small retakes will be right at the heel, because if you try and do that at the balance point, you will bounce. So you have to be lower than the balance point. Those hook semiquavers are going to be around the balance point heel area. You're using a lot of bow when it's loud, obviously.
Do you teach the crescendo at 23, like getting bigger with your bow?
I think,
Most people just seem to ignore it.
yeah, I mean, I think it's forte already. I think what I take that to mean is really make the top A special, rather than to save bow and not use the whole bow on the first couple of notes of that bar. It's also built in by the fact that you use an open E, so you always hear it, even if you're not doing anything. It's getting it's an organic crescendo. It's getting higher. You've got the open E will make them automatically louder than the Ds, and then it's a good opportunity to really practice making sure that top A is ringing and bright. I do not teach a 4 in the upbeat to 31. It's up to you. I like the ringing sounds of the open E's. Same in 32. I do teach the 4s in 18 and 20. And you must teach the 4s in 12 and 13. Okay? Any questions about two Grenadiers?
Agitato. What does that mean for your play?
Getting a bit faster and literally agitated. I don't think we tend to speed up. I think, for me, I take it to mean don't slow down, basically. I think lots of kids slow down there because it's quiet and they don't really understand what's supposed to be happening. I've got a note here that it's like the casualty, like they're worrying about the casualties in bar 11. It's like when you're feeling really worried and scared because you're at war.
I think also to remember to breathe for the rest before in bar 22.
22, yeah.
Stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I can go through that.
Good.
Key signatures the first time, isn't it? You've got two
D
key
minor.
signatures for the minor.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would think that most students are not understanding the key signatures well enough to understand the theory behind D minor and D major, but you would definitely want to talk to them about how it sounds. You know, it's got the same home, but it's sad at the beginning and happy at the end. And your finger patterns are changing to make that happen.
When do you talk to them about understanding key signature?
So, I think we will cover that in sight reading more than in this book to start with. Certainly by the time they're doing I can read music, improve your sight reading, grade 2. They've got a couple of different key signatures and I would be teaching them the scales and wanting to make sure that they understand that basically the key signature is there to tell you where to put your fingers. I think it's only D and A major, maybe G, maybe C, but not with an F natural, in grade 2.
I think you get F major as well.
In grade 2? Do you? I think it might be grade 3.
I think it's grade 2.
Is it?
Could be wrong though.
Basically level 5 of music mind games, so when they're probably the end of book 2 into the beginning of book 3, they're covering Sharp's key signatures. Certainly the kids that we're working with in orchestra are starting to understand the key signatures, certainly like D major, A major, G major. The flats keys tend to come much later. Relative minors tend to come much later. I would think it does depend on the age of the child for that stuff a bit, because it's sort of intellectual rather than physical playing skills. But for example, Birdie, who is on Witch's Dance, in fact not on Witch's Dance anymore because she got her credit yesterday, could tell you that you look at the last sharp and go up a semitone and that tells you the major key, but she wouldn't know what a relative minor was and she wouldn't know how to do a key other than G, D, A. I don't think she would know C yet.
How long would you be colouring in, or would they be colouring highs and lows or finger patterns in to their...
I'm mostly not doing that. I mean, we do that in Gossec, but and Musette. Where else? I don't think I'd be doing that by Witch's Dance.
So they're just doing it by ear?
Yeah. Or by rules, like yeah, so I think like for Musette, they would know that they've got the low 2s on E and high 2s on A because they're in D major and we would do the D major scale. But I wouldn't be colouring them in.
Is there
At that
no
point.
negative to doing that? Because I do colour them in for quite a while.
I don't think so. I think the thing that gets confusing is, or not confusing, but I guess the risk, not really a negative, but the risk is that then they don't look at the music for things like if you're thinking about Hunter's Chorus, where is it a C sharp and where is it a C natural? It's not just from the key signature, it's actually because there's a natural. So if you want them to really understand the key signature kind of concept, then maybe it's better for them to only have the ones that are like unusual written in by them. But I don't think, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't worry about it if you're still coming on at this stage. I think that's completely fine. But again, in Bourrée, because it's not actually from the key that it migrates into D major, modulates into D major for the second line, and then stays in G for the last line. If you're colouring it in, it will mean that they know where their 2s are, but it might mean that they're not so aware of the key signature relationship. But again, you know, if you've got a 6-year-old who's doing Handel Bourrée, they're really not going to understand the keys very easily, whereas if you've got a 10-year-old, then they will. So it does depend on the child. Good, okay. Any other questions about any of that? To go back to the theory thing, I would definitely expect them to know that a sharp makes a note go higher by a semitone and a flat makes it go lower by a semitone. And I think this is a good place to start teaching them the natural semitones, which is really important and was definitely not covered in my training, in terms of how they understand the physicality of the violin and the keys that they're learning, they've got to know that the natural semitones are B and C and E and F, and they've just got to learn that, because then they can work out any note on their violin. Whereas if you don't know those two things, you're just lost.
I teach something similar in terms of where all the natural notes are on the violin. So I just tell them to remember high 2 on G, low 1 on E, and then the rest are
Yeah.
that they know.
Yeah.
And if they know the white notes on the violin, then any sharp they can work out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, also good.
So natural semitones are
E and F
okay.
and B and C. So yeah, like Hannah said, if you think about that on the violin, you need to make sure that you've got, in terms of naturals, a high 2 on the G string and a low 1 on the E string, and then all the other naturals are low 2s, normal 1s, 3s and 4s.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Yeah. We'll do more about this when we do sight reading.
Okay.
Good. Okay, let's see if we can do Witch's Dance. Let's play it again. So we're looking for nice speedy bows on the dotted quavers. And that's often what you get in reverse. The children often play. Oh, I can't even do it. And then it's like, I don't understand really why that happens, but that really does happen a lot. So, nice speedy bows for the longer notes. Okay, can you use much more bow on the down and the up? Good. Here, and we are planting the fingers in preparation. So we're in yellow with a hot pink 3, but we're not going to use the 4 with a low 1. So we've got space between 2 and 3 and 1 and 2, and then we play the first 2 bars only. Stop. Now we're going to plant 1 and 2 best friends with an F sharp, and 3 and 4 best friends. So you're in orange. And then pull your 1 back, and you're going to think about a high 2 on the A string. Very lovely, well done. So with bar 25, that bit that we did, I think you either want to do that kind of as preview, or you want them to start the piece and then to practice that separately, leaving it out while they're playing the whole piece through. And I don't think it really matters. It's not so hard that it has to be preview. But I think that if you just let them go on this piece and they have a go at all of it, that bit's not going to be very good. So either get them to sing it, if they're having a go at the whole piece, get them to sing it and then show it to them in the next lesson, or show it to them first and then set them off on the whole piece. I'm very much hoping that most of your students from about perpetual motion at the latest, and maybe even as early as lightly row, are working out some of their working piece at home, that you're not teaching them every note, that you're not showing them how the piece works before they have a go at it. I think some teachers are very panicky about students learning things wrong by themselves, and then they really hold them back because they don't want to have to fix anything. But if what we want to do in a very, very meta, big scale of our job is to make ourselves redundant, right? You eventually want a student who doesn't need a teacher. Then I think the earlier that you can start with them working stuff out and bringing to you what they've done, the better. And also you will realise a lot more about how your students' understanding is developing as a whole if you let them try and prepare their own pieces, rather than if you teach them every single thing, you don't know which bits they would have got without your help in advance and which bits they wouldn't have. If kids are going to play by ear, then they should be playing by ear, right? And you showing them in the lesson without the music is not playing by ear, it's imitation. So I think it's, you know, it's really, I remember being at a teacher's conference when I was about 20, and this American teacher giving a speech and saying, I really hope, or how did he do it? He did something like, put your hands up if you ever teach notes and bowings, and obviously everyone put their hand up because you do have to some of the time, and he said, I really hope that if I asked you, he didn't like shame everyone into making it public, but I really hope if I asked you whether you teach notes and bowings for every piece, there wouldn't be a single hand up in the auditorium. And it's like, yeah, what we need to be teaching is the preview bits, the bits they're not going to work out by themselves, the bits they don't understand. But we should be teaching a student good enough playing by ear, good enough theory and sight reading skills that they can work out a lot of these very complicated by now pieces without our help. So you definitely want to show them bar 25 to 31. Because it's just too new. I mean, some kids will do it by ear if they find playing by ear very easy, but it's beyond most students to work that out by themselves. You definitely need bar 3 and 4 in a box, and that is a nice little preview to do while they're still doing Two Grenadiers, if it's one of those situations where Two Grenadiers is taking ages. You know, to teach them the box and then teach them the first line of which is dance is really exciting for them.
And is that because of the high 3?
Exactly, yeah. And of course you have done lots of the twinkle in this rhythm during Handlebury and Two Grenadiers. This one. Which is, it's really hard for lots of them to get the hooked bowing thing at speed. There are loads of retakes in this piece. Make sure that you write them in for them, because most parents don't understand how to work out whether you need a retake or not. And also, some really clever beings will be like, so... Yeah, because there's actually, you know, it's a weird thing, isn't it, that there's not a printed sign for a retake, so you always have to work out whether it's a retake or a stop.
The one I thought
And
was
then-
isn't, apparently. I thought the 2 diagonal lines was a retake thing.
No, there's no sign universally recognised for a retake. I do think the circle with the arrow is really helpful, because then obviously you can reverse it when you need to go the other way. Which doesn't happen for ages. Everybody always plays a G natural in bar 20. I don't understand why. They've played a high 2 before. It doesn't sound weird. I don't understand why they do that, but you really need to make sure that you're really thinking about your red finger pattern there. So once they've got those 2 lines as a box, 25 to 31, I would ask, it's a lot to play, so don't try and get them to do it as a 10 box, but I am trying 5 times with the stop for each one, so that they will be practicing it like this. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Prepare, prepare. Prepare. later, once they can play it without the stop and prepare, maybe 8 times. The bowing that gets everyone confused is the hook at the beginning of bar 37. So,
Ooh.
yeah, I don't know, it's
It's down, 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 isn't it?
no, it's down, down, up.
Down, down, down.
Oh, yeah, I don't think mine have a problem with the arm movement. I think they just want to do an up bow because they're thinking about the triplets. But I would definitely practice down and then stop and ask them, presumably they still have a stripe there, or you know, are you near your hand? So do that 10 times and then practice as a separate box before you put them together.
Wait, sorry, what do students find difficult?
The third hook, the first 2 notes of 37. They always want to
Okay,
play
yeah.
down, up.
Yeah.
And then up, down, up for the triplets after that.
And let's play, rather than me talking more about, this is a great place to build on rhythm practice. Where do you think you might have introduced rhythm practice for the first time?
Is that just because the fingers can trip up a bit here?
Yeah, to get it faster.
Yeah.
Maybe go up, cossack, maybe?
Maybe. I think allegro is the classic to practice. And then, so if you're thinking about rhythm practice as being, the brilliant thing about rhythm practice is if you've got 8 notes like this and you play them slowly, they're like that, and then you want to play them fast and you get them like that, it's too much, like, it's too complicated. So if you practice, okay, can you do the first 2 as quickly as you can, and practicing them like that, do-do, when you can really think about it, do-do, there aren't 8 notes in the thingy. Yeah, and then you reverse your pairs, do, and then therefore when you make them all even, you've practiced all of the notes really close to another note, but still with the brain power stop, and then you can put them together. That doesn't work very well in triplets, which is why we use stop pony and pony stop or berry gooseberry. So once they can play. Let's just play it like that, and obviously the challenge for them is the 2s because that's the finger that moves. Good, and then we're going to play stop, pony, so my turn. Ready, play. Pony, stop, my turn. Ready, go. And then most of the kids will then find it much easier to play faster, just triplets already. But you might want to put cucumber in if you can. It's hard, so. Cucumber, ready, go. Okay, one more time, bit of bigger bows, Kit. And now. And it's like magic, and they do quite like it. I don't always do the cucumbers because they are hard, but I think that's a really nice place, and it's really great for them to hear you say, you know, when I have really fast semiquavers in the piece I'm learning, I literally use rhythm practice to do that, so this is like being a professional practicer. Cucumber, 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 cucumber.
If you wrote that out, what rhythm would that be?
It would be a semiquaver, then a quaver, then a semiquaver.
I've written straight.
Quaver, then a semi-quaver.
Yeah, semi-quaver, quaver, semi-quaver.
Like
Think of a
this.
triplet with extra arms.
You're not keeping them tripletised.
No, but
So you've got gooseberry, long, short, short. You've got a short, short, long, berry goose. And then you've got
So it ends up, it's like a note before a stop note. So you start with an upbeat to a stop note.
no.
No?
This is completely different. I mean, yeah, you're not wrong, but the emphasis is on the first. If you explain it to them like an upbeat, I think you're going to lose them. We do quite a lot of cucumber in Blue Jello in Music Mind Games, so they should be kind of aware of what it means. But also I think you can help them understand it by being like, okay, if you've got these 4 semiquavers in each bit, it's just about either you make those ones together, or you make those ones together, or you make those ones together. Does that make sense? Clear as mud? It's like, I'm nearly on holiday. I'm nearly on holiday. Yeah, I think it's something that they don't really do intellectually at this stage. They understand it in terms of the long, short, short, long, short, no, short, long, short, short, long, short, short, long, or whatever one you're talking about, rather than actually like rhythm maths. The tick boxes for this piece are clear articulation. And that is a really big one, because what you hear a lot with dotted rhythms is this. Like where it's just not, you don't have the contact with the string, so you definitely want to check that they are using their squeezy bow hand as well as their elbow. Because if you're just pushing and pulling from the arm, that's where you don't get the articulation. So again, it's arm for the dotted quaver and hand for the semiquaver. Rhythm. Dynamics. Boxes. And I've got drama.
I tend to shove them around when we first do this.
Yeah, good. Make sure that you do the B flat major scale and perpetual motion during Witch's Dance. Don't wait and then treat it like a different one, otherwise Mignon is a complete nightmare.
Is that under preview?
Yeah, so it's just the next page. So sort of treat these 2 pages as happening at the same time. And you may also want to start preparing the trills. Have a cup of tea, have a cup of tea. Will you have a cup of tea? Or whatever words you want to use. Which is on page 21 if you want to look at where it's written out. Is it written out now?
It's written out afterwards, isn't it? It's
Really
really,
the wrong word.
really in the
The
page
wrong
after.
number. There we go, page 22.
Would you do the B flat major before you do 2 Grenadiers?
Yep, could do. I think as long as you've done it by the time you start Mignon, it's okay.
What are we doing to prepare the ones for 2 Grenadiers?
I'm just doing lots of low ones.
Oh, we've been doing it from the tonalisation in the minor as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. and just practicing, you know, something like that.
And Aunt Rhodey.
Yeah,
Aunt Rhodey.
yeah. I think it's the challenge in Mignon is suddenly having the low fours and the low ones in the middle section, which is not what you have in Two Grenadiers or Witch's Dance, so you kind of buy yourself a bit of time. It's really great to tell them that Paganini was like the first violin megastar. You know, like literally crowds of people used to follow him around Europe to hear him play. He was immensely successful in a way that we can't, and he was like a rock star. We can't imagine a classical musician being like that these days. And you know, people throwing stuff at him on stage, and like you can pull up a picture of him on the internet. He looks very dramatic. You know,
dramatic.
really tall, really like
Slender.
skinny, dark. Looks a bit like Dracula kind of thing. Had really long fingers apparently. And that, you know, the Paganini Caprices are like the hardest pieces basically that anyone's ever written. And so this is like the first kind of, you know, step towards playing those crazy pieces if you ever want to. And of course lots of talk about witches and Halloween and all of that. They love that mostly. Alright, have you found us a picture of Paganini?
I'm looking at him, yes. They're quite a lot, and they all look quite different. I like this one the most, because it's most witchy.
Oh yeah. Look at the hair,
Oh,
so
lovely.
good. Looks like a new romantic. Well, I guess the new romantics look like him rather than him looking like a new romantic.
That nose and chin is deadly though.
I know. Yeah,
His
Wings at
nose
some
is
point.
massive.
very pointy and yeah,
Did he have, isn't there like a
yeah.
The
it
condition
has
that
it,
he
yeah,
has, yeah.
yeah.
like hyper flexible digits or something?
I don't think it's about hyperflexibility. I think it's about like he had a really high soft palate inside his mouth, and like he was really tall and really like slender and long limbed and fingered,
Yeah,
And
his
that
hand is like.
to do with something that was like it's a congenital condition that he had.
Look how
So
big his
reaching
hand
those
is.
notes.
Yeah, obviously helped him to play the violin.
Look how big his hand is across the violin.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, it is a portrait, not a photo, isn't it?
No, I think
But,
this one is a
That
photo.
looks like a photo.
is it a photograph?
I think this one looks like it might be, yeah.
What year is it?
The other ones look like portraits.
Like ghoulish hands.
That does it. You're right, actually.
Yeah.
Pick up the
It's
violin. It
insane,
looks
isn't it? Like, it's like us playing an 8 size. Imagine what we could do if we could play an 8 size violin. Tenths, no problem. How about double octaves?
He died in 1840. They didn't have photos yet.
They did.
They did.
When did we have photos?
Early 1800s.
Early 1800s.
Yeah.
When did he die?
1840.
Can you tell us when he was born as well, please?
1782.
82. 1840. Gosh, he wasn't that old, was he? Well,
1826 was the first photo ever taken.
there you go.
And he'd been rich enough to afford to have that taken.
Oh, he was a complete
Yeah.
megastar. Yeah, completely. Right, B flat major scale. Let's just see if we can bang through this, and then we will not do Mignon before lunch because we'll all just turn into raving lunatics. So exercise 11. I think it's very useful for them to learn that this upside down V or the right radiogram V means a semitone. I tend to use the phrase best friends for the kids, but you know, I've put that in really for a long time. I've been using that in their books by now, probably since Gossec. Not every semitone, obviously, but particularly when it's yellow with a hot pink 3, our favourite, to put it in as a reminder. I would write in the 4 for the E flat in bar 3 of the scale. And I like them to do open strings on the way down, just like we would when we play a normal scale. I don't like to practice the 4s there. I think if I want, if like I said before, if I want them to practice 4s, I would set them, you know, twinkle with no open strings, or you know, early book 1 pieces with no open strings, rather than teaching them a scale where they go from a 1 to a 4. It's horrible, and it makes the tuning really much more difficult. That's my personal opinion. Same on the arpeggios, I wouldn't use the 4s.
Let alone a low one for, like on...
Exactly, yeah. Personally, I want them to learn the scale and the arpeggio off by heart, but I wouldn't require them to learn all of exercise 12 off by heart. I'm happy for them to read that as a kind of exercise in keeping the key and making beautiful sound, making sure they understand the relationship between the fingers. So I've written at the top of page 19, and I would write for them green fingers on G and D.
Sorry, say that again?
But that's not quite right, is it?
Yeah. No.
Well, it's not, because it's the B flat. So I know what I've done. So green fingers on G and D, yellow on A and E, and that is because we're not talking about what the key signature tells you to do, we're talking about the key of this scale, so therefore they're not thinking about A natural with the 1. So in terms of getting prepared for the scale, I want them to think about green fingers, so no semitones. So they've got that kind of like open feeling as they start. And then they understand that that's where the 4 would go if they used a 4. And then yellow with a hopping 3. Yeah? And like we were saying before, we're not really complicating it in terms of them understanding the key
Yellow
signature.
with a high 2 then?
No, yellow is, so it's all about pattern, it doesn't matter where it starts. So yellow with a hopping 3 is just tone, tone, semitone, wherever you are, whether you're in 3rd position, half position, 1st position, whatever.
Okay.
It is confusing that on the pattern they have that little bit of black at the top. I think it implies that it's at the end of the string, whereas actually it would be better if it's just sort of floating nowhere, because you know, you can be in 10th position and use yellow with a hopping 3. It's not about the note being a B natural, for example.
What's the benefit of using that over using high and low colours?
Well, first of all, that it does work in any position, so when they start shifting, it's really helpful. And then also something like a low 2, if you've got a low 1, is it a low 2? It's a tone away from 1.
Yeah.
Whereas if you teach sort of, so if you're thinking about the E string, that G natural is a low 2, then you may as well teach that it's a G natural. And then what about when you start to do, like later in book 3, you've got like a low 3, and that's on the doo-doo-doo-doo, if you do that there, F sharp, but that's high 2. I think the patterns, it's a bit like using solfa, do, re, mi, as long as you have a movable do, it's really helpful because it's the pattern wherever you are on the instrument. You don't have to worry about what pitch you're using at all. And this is similar. It's about the relationships between the fingers rather than the relationship to the instrument and the fingers.
Yeah, okay.
It's really helped my more advanced students. I think I used high and low 2s and 1s and stuff for ages, like
They stop working
10 years.
when you shift.
Exactly.
So I might try and introduce this.
Whereas red is always going to be red, and I'm still, like I was teaching La Folia the other day, and I'm like, what finger colour is this? And she's like, oh, it's red. And you know, like it just goes and goes and goes all the way through. I wish that it had been on my teacher training when I did it, because I think it's so brilliant.
That book is awesome. The whole book, that charts form, fingerboard geography.
I've got a copy you can look at if you like. And then perpetual motion we are doing with yellow fingers all the way through There are no open strings, it's helpful to point out to them. And if you've got a child who's either slightly resistant to doing things like this or excited by knowing why they're doing things like this, you can show them at the beginning of book 4, not literally with the book maybe, but you can say when you get to book 4, we have to play and I don't think that's in book 4, but you know, like often when they get, they're like, oh my god, you can play perpetual motion up there. And you're like, as soon as you can do that, you can do that anywhere on the violin because it's the open strings that mean you can't move out first position. So as soon as you get rid of the open strings, you're ready to go. And that's very exciting. And so by this point, you definitely, thinking about shifting, want to make sure that you've been playing pieces in third position, that you're doing ghosties, that you've got the kind of shifting project happening as a side, you know. So if we think about beginner violinists, you are just learning how to play the violin. And then the next thing that you're going to introduce is a tiny bit of music reading and like maybe using like a Read Music or flashcards or something. But you know, while they're on their twinkles, basically their practice is all about playing twinkles and playing the violin. And then by the time you get into kind of the middle of book 1, you've added the idea of review and you've added sight reading, so that a practice then has 3 parts to it. It's got the review, the sight reading, and the work on the top piece, working piece. And then by the time you get into book 2, you've added shifting as another kind of part of that, so that every practice and every lesson, you're just doing something to do with shifting. And so you've got your preview, your review, your working piece, and your sight reading and shifting. And then later on, you know, book 4, 5 area, you're going to be adding scales and sight reading and maybe studies and maybe orchestra music. And that's like, as the practice starts to become more diverse in terms of what you're actually covering.
What did you just say, sorry?
As they get more advanced, the practice gets more diverse in terms of how many different subjects they're thinking of covering in a full practice.
Okay.
That so you might have,
Double stops.
yeah, like so you'll always have your review, your working piece, and your preview. And then for a book 4, 5 student, you would also have scales and arpeggios, probably maybe a study, maybe orchestra music, maybe improvisation, you know, like whatever extra things they're doing. Those things as well. Okay. Let's meet again at 1:45. Well done, everyone. Making sterling progress through book 2. Oh, come on, computer, what are you doing?